Hey everybody, back for lesson 2 of week 2. We need to talk about chapter 10. That was your first chapter that you needed to read this week, and we have some key things to talk about because conflicts are escalating. Our themes are really taking shape, and everything kind of comes together in these last few chapters. Our primary themes of race relations, land ownership, the value of hard work and family, things like that. All of these things we see really come into play in these last few chapters. So in chapter 10, we saw a few key things happen. We pick up like a week after Papa's accident on the road after his leg was broken. And we see very quickly in his conversations with Mama and things like that, that not only is it a big deal that he was physically injured by the Wallaces, but one of the key results of that is that because he is injured, he can't go back to work on the railroad. And if he can't go back to work on the railroad, he's not making that money. And if he's not making that money, they're going to have a hard time making their payments on the land. That's what this is all about for Granger. I mean, obviously there's like the revenge and just the anger and stuff about their boycott and of the Wallace store and shopping in Vicksburg and all of that. But ultimately, you know, the Wallaces and the Grangers are tight, and anybody who wrongs one of them wrongs them both. And so now they're both out to get the Logans, really, in some way. And this is, you know, they went after them physically, but then also the impact of that is the fact that Papa now can't go work. And so they're really hurting for where that money's going to come from. And every little bit of that gives Harlan Granger more power over them, and more likelihood that he's, you know, working all these angles to take the land back. So then we see that also come into play because the next big event in the story is when Mr. Morrison goes up to Strawberry to make the, what did they say, the June payment, and he comes back with this letter from the bank, and it says the bank called up the note. And that was one thing I thought maybe you wouldn't be quite sure what that meant, because it's not terminology that you probably are familiar with. But basically what that means is the bank said, okay, you don't get to make us payments anymore. You have to pay the rest of what you owe us, all at once. And obviously they're not able to do that. That's not even a possibility for them. And so for the bank to do that shows clearly there is someone working on the inside, whether it be a connection to Harlan Granger, whether it be a connection to the Wallaces there at the bank, that is on their side, and they're trying to do this. And so for the bank to decide monthly payments aren't good enough, you have to pay us up front, puts the Logan family in a hugely tough position. So Papa ultimately ends up calling up Uncle Hammer. Hates to put that in, you know, put that burden on him, but that's kind of their only option. They need that money because they cannot and will not give up the land. Uncle Hammer comes on foot and says that he sold his car, which is kind of humbling in and of itself, because that was, you know, the car that he rubbed Harlan Granger's nose in it a little bit, but he was willing to do it. He said, you know, you can't grow cotton on the car. You can't raise 4 babies on the car. He recognizes what's truly most important. And so Uncle Hammer sold the car, borrowed some money, but was able to then come back and they were able to make the payment. And then we see also a little glimpse that Mama and Papa are eager for Hammer to go home. Not because they don't love him, not because they don't want him there, but they know that he's only going to get himself into trouble because he's got a hot temper. That's where Cassie gets it. And he's going to do or say something that he can't get out of. And they're already in trouble, the Logan family. And so they're like, Hammer can't stay. It's not good for any of us. Thankfully, he leaves. And Mama's also worried about Mr. Morrison because he's in a tough spot too, because he hurt a couple of the Wallace brothers in self-defense, but it doesn't matter when you're a black person. And so, you know, we have some really, really interesting predicaments happening. Their land ownership is in question right now. Their safety is in question. And, you know we only have 2 chapters of this book left, so a lot of big things are going to happen. The final thing that we saw in chapter 10 was TJ show up at the revival, which is like basically a big summer church celebration, picnics and events and socialization and all that stuff. And TJ shows up flanked on either side with one of the Avery boys, or 2 of the Avery boys, strutting his stuff like a big shot. Look at me, trying to get attention, and it doesn't work the way he wants. I mean, he wants people to be impressed with him. He wants to, you know, show off, and everybody just kind of turns on him. And it shows the difference in the value system between TJ and the Logans and what matters to them. So we see TJ kind of at the end of the chapter feeling hurt, feeling lost, probably a little angry, a little embarrassed, and, you know, following the Avery boys around like a puppy, because he's like, they give me whatever I want. And the majority of us from the outside looking in can see that they are mocking him, and they are taking advantage of him and abusing that power position. We don't know what's going to happen with that yet, but something's going to happen. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed chapter 10. So the next assignment is to read chapter 11, and then your worksheet assignment for chapter 11 is this one right here. I'm outside again, so I know there's kind of a weird light reflection. It's this one here about the meaning of land, and it kind of looks like a puzzle, because land ownership and the value of land is one of our fundamental themes in this book that we've been talking about from the very beginning. And the land means something different to different characters. And so that's your challenge now, for this chapter, is start to look at what does the land mean to Mr. Granger compared to Mr. Jameson, compared to Papa. It's important to all of them in some way, but it's just very different in terms of its meaning. So I would like to see this assignment done in complete sentences, and then in each little section, you write incomplete sentences, a few sentences to a short paragraph explaining the meaning of this land ownership for each of these characters in this puzzle, because it is a key component in our story, both for the race relations, the family relationships, personal identity, all of those things. Take a look at what you think the value and the meaning of the land for each of these characters. Okay, so read chapter 11, send me that worksheet, and I'll see you in the next lesson talking about chapter 11. Bye, guys.